Assalamu alaikum. Peace. It's Fatimah, Coach Fatimah, 1/3 of Outstanding Personal Relationships and co-author of the new book, Let's Talk Polygamy Uncensored. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you all can hear me. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know where you are at. How you feeling this morning? It's evening for me. We're going to start in just a few moments as I share something with you very quickly, inshallah. Let's see. Now, really quick, I want to make sure that later on in the live cast that you or the live that you put question marks in front of your questions so I can readily identify them. And we are going to be starting with faith, the art of healing, the fantasy, very shortly after these messages. Okay, I think you guys can hear me now. I'm going to repeat that once again. Assalamu alaikum, peace. I'm Coach Fatimah, 1/3, co-founder of Outstanding Personal Relationships and co-author of the new book, Let's Talk Polygamy Uncensored. Now, for this live, this installment of Quintessential Queens I'm going to be discussing faith, the art of healing, the fantasy, and I'll get into that a little bit more within this live about what do I mean by that? What is the fantasy? What is where does faith come in with that? But before I do, please let me know where you all are from. How you doing? How you feeling? Put it down in the comments section. And also, if you do have any questions for me toward the end of this cast, please put question marks in front of the questions so that I myself can readily identify them because I won't really see them. So we're going to start very shortly. Make sure that you all are liking and commenting and subscribing and sharing this live cast with those that might find it of much benefit. If you're watching me from YouTube, make sure you hit that notification bell. If you're not a subscriber already, why not? Because you never know, even if you're single, if you're thinking about polygyny or marriage, you never know who might benefit from this information. I myself didn't think that I would know so much about polygyny, and I'm still learning more. So I always sit in a place of absolute humility and gratitude for this opportunity to be able to share information and trainings and teachings and coaching and counseling, which my co-wife and I do offer. So if you are interested, you'll see at the bottom of your screen, you can visit coachfatimah.com or coachnyla.com and also coachnazir.com for the husbands out there or those of you that just want to level up and be more attractive in your life and in your business and also in your marriage. She's got some really awesome information. So does my co-wife, Coach Nyla, and I. And we do indeed offer that. And you can click those links or click the respective websites and check them out. By all means, please do that. Waving back. Greetings once again. Assalamu alaikum. Peace once again to those of you that may be sending them to me as you might be driving while you're listening to this or you're tuning in. Again, let me know where you're from, how you're doing. What do you expect this new year 2023 to look like for you? What are your intentions for this new year? One of my intentions is to spread more information about best practices for best results in marriage, especially your most private concerns that you might have, or some of the things you might have voiced publicly, and we might have answered them already, but we want to make sure that we keep the conversation going, because polygyny doesn't get its fair airplay because it's considered so taboo. Tell you a brief little bit of history. UAE, alhamdulillah. I'm going to tell you a brief little history. I've been married to Coach Nazir for 28 years. We've been in polygyny. He's practiced polygyny for 13 years. And I want to make sure I give this disclaimer that please, 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 please do not compare your year 1, your year 2 to our year 13, because we remember when we weren't the OPR team and we weren't coaches at that time, maybe in different areas, but not in the area of marriage and polygyny. So this is a really awesome, awesome opportunity. And I indeed enjoy it a great deal. So does the OPR team. And, you know, the OPR team is also my family. We're one big family. And we're going to get right into, with that, we're going to get right into this live. So faith, the art of healing the fantasy. One of the things that I knew that was happening to me growing up in the home of my paternal grandparents was that I was exposed to a lot of Disney princess movies and cartoons. And I said, well, I got to wait for my Prince Charming to come and, you know, give me a smooch so I can wake up and save me, and my knight in shining armor and all this stuff. And what I found out is that there was a build of delusion. There was a build of delusion. And I kind of set myself up to kind of wait and say, all these things have to be done on the part of my husband. All these things have to be done on the part of the men in my life, because I can't save myself from whatever I feel, whatever I want to do, whatever I want to be. And it maybe that didn't work out. It's all on him. And so I created this delusion, this fantasy in my mind that went on for years and years and years and years and years until I understood how devastatingly, how much of a failure that was to create that scenario or those delusions. Fast forward into me getting married, because I said, okay, I take care of the babies. He goes to work. I'll kind of just have a little bit of things that I like art and design and those things. And then I'll just kind of follow in his footsteps, and I'll kind of try to do the things he does and keep up with him, and, you know, have this caricature of myself that really wasn't practical for my life. So leading into being married for almost 30 years now, I can look back and say, wait a minute, that was not healthy. That imagery of the Disney princess was not healthy. That he must come save me from whatever I'm feeling wasn't healthy. Although it was being marketed and packaged and pushed as such, it just was not the best thing to do for me. And I found that a lot of women in my circle, a lot of women in my community, a lot of women in my family had done the same thing. So when their husbands didn't live up to this fantasy, then they were looked at as a failure or not good enough. So I said, well, I kind of got to break the cycle. And it happened because for those of you that might be new, Coach Nyla and I met in high school, and it was a really interesting time in my life now that I look back on it. And I remember that the neighborhood bullies I had, the school bullies I had, some of the bullies I had within my own family tree kind of took a back seat and disappeared. And I said, oh, it's because of him. It's because he's such a strong presence when he comes into the room. And not that he was this big, scary person. It's that he had a confidence that some found very intimidating, even as a teenager. So then what I did was I kind of placed him on this invisible pedestal as someone that was the knight in shining armor that swooped down and got rid of whoever was bothering me. They just disappeared. And at a very young age, I looked at him as the person that had the power to do that, instead of looking inside of myself and saying it was always there within me, but I just had to kind of pull it out and stand up for myself. So I had so much faith in his ability to stand up for me, but I had little in myself to stand up for myself. And that was important, because once he decided to practice polygyny, he didn't wake up one day and spring up out the bed and say, no, I'm doing it today. Today's the day. This is a process. This is a growth journey that he had to go on for himself. And I had to look at this and go, that doesn't have anything to do with me, because it's not a fault or a lack in me as a wife that he wants to marry again. It's something that was already inside of him, very strong, that he said, okay, now's the time. And only he could measure that, and only he could figure that out for himself, because he's grown. So I always love to share this, because I always mean it. It's not our job to raise our husbands, but rather work with our husbands. And that's very key. So I had to learn that. And I was a young wife, and I was new to Islam. I was a new wife. I was a new Muslim, a new wife, a new mother, all in the same year. And I experienced my first new loss. So I'd lost my grandfather the same year I got married, the same year I gave birth. I felt like an orphan, because he had passed of a massive heart attack 2 weeks after I got married. So I didn't have much time to really enjoy being a newlywed. And then on down the line, and then when I had my daughter, I was going, I wish he was here, because he loved baby girls. He loved girls. He was the father of 3 sons, and he really wanted a girl. And I think part of raising me, I felt like I couldn't do any wrong, because he wanted a baby girl. So what I did was I had to learn to kind of reel in this fantasy husband, because it wasn't serving me to say, this is the one that's going to make it right. This is the fixer. He's going to be my fixer, not me, him. He's going to fix all this stuff, all this broken family, all of this, me feeling like I'm by myself in this place, whether it be high school, whether it was college, whether it was at my grandparents' house, because I was closer to my grandfather. So it kind of pushed me and my grandmother together. Although I loved her very deeply and she loved me very deeply, I was very close to my grandpa. He was like my buddy. So, and as I got older, we had less time together, because I was older and I was in college and these different things and ripping and running, and I didn't have a lot of time, and I was young, and I'll get with him later. But I learned the value of how much I love my grandfather after he passed away. So the intensity was stronger. So what I did was I started actually getting around a lot of women that said, listen, marriage, you keep your individuality. If you don't do that, there's going to be a problem. I'm like, I'm an individual. I'm married, but you're as one. And that is only true to a certain degree. You're your own person, you're individually, you're singular. I was born singular, so was Coach Nazir. We had our own identity. So I had to understand his role as a husband would not look like my role as a wife. We had different responsibilities, needs. We had so many different ways that we communicated differently. Although we're both Muslim, although we both were married to one another, both we were parents to the same child at the same time, we did things differently. And that's okay. And I had to understand that this is his life. This is my life. We intersect sometimes with one another, but I got to understand. And he knew, because I had given birth, and he wasn't going to give birth. He wasn't going to nurse our daughter. I had different responsibilities that came with different stressors, and that came with different triumphs, and came with different tragedies and lessons that I had to learn as a wife, and he had to learn his lessons as a husband. So before I proceed, I want to make sure that you guys picked up our polygamy roadmap at polygamyroadmap.com. I want to make sure I share that with you, and I want to share with you something else as well. So hold tight.
I'm Coach Fatimah.
And I'm Coach Nyla.
And she married my husband.
Yes, I did. And we are co-wives, and our husband practices polygamy, or better yet, polygyny.
Were there challenges? Of course there were, especially early on.
Oh, yeah.
There's different emotional pain, like you're dealing with jealousy, insecurity, trying to figure out what's going on with your emotional roller coaster.
Are you going to fit in? Will people accept you? Will the kids like you? So those different things. We wish we had a guide, a roadmap, if you will, to help us through those challenges when we were going through them in our early stages of polygamy.
Lucky for you, we figured this thing out.
It took some years.
It took some years. And we wrote one for you.
Yes. And it's the Women's Polygamy Roadmap ebook.
Yes. Because we know that we have so many different things that might be going on with us as wives. Again, we might be dealing with jealousy, insecurity, trying to navigate different emotions.
Yes, feeling insecure and not being able to know where you fit in, if you are going to be accepted or whatnot, as well as blending the families. You know, will the kids like me?
Yeah, some really serious issues, but we packaged it within our awesome ebook. So make sure you all grab one today.
Yes, you get all that information and more in that. So do not wait. Make sure you grab your Women's Polygamy Roadmap ebook today. Click the link on this page anywhere. Assalamu alaikum.
Peace.
Please grab your copy.
I loved filming that ad that day. We have a great time, my co-wife and I, and our husband, creating these ads. And the Polygamy Roadmap ebook is such an awesome tool, especially if you're new to polygyny. I wish I had one back in those days, but it was so incredibly taboo to talk about polygyny. And among any circles, the men found it difficult. Sometimes they had to whisper and talk very quietly during their own private discussions about polygyny, because then it becomes almost this war of words. And part of Outstanding Personal Relationships is the creation of it came about because we knew we had a specific responsibility to share what we had overcome, how we did it. And it's really awesome to sit here now and say, I'm coaching about polygyny and marriage and stuff for well over 10 years now. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity. Now let's get back into faith, the art of healing the fantasy, which is what this Quintessential Queens live is about. Now, one thing I knew that I had to understand, like I was speaking about before, was the difference between the responsibilities of men and women. Now, one thing I knew, I said, well, we both fearlessly protect our families, but what does the intensity look like? So I thought of cats. I love cats. I've had cats in almost every house I've lived in as a young adult. Now, I said, okay, domestic cats. There's different kinds of cats and breeds. I said, what's the difference between a domesticated cat and a lion? A lion and a cat both protect. They both have the ability to harm. They both have the ability to hiss. One roars, one doesn't. However, they can look kind of similar in some ways. In some ways, they don't look similar. And I said, I feel as though since they both protect their young and their family and their mate, that might be true. However, I said a lion is far more ferocious in their protection than a domesticated cat. Although we're not cats and dogs, it's just an example of how I thought about the men and the women in my family. I didn't run and go get my grandmother if there was some trouble. I went and got my grandfather and my father because I knew the intensity, and maybe I didn't have the words then, but I knew they had the intensity and the drive and the strength to come up behind me and strike some sort of fear, because a lot of people understand this fact that men have the potential to become dangerous when they reach a certain level of anger, rage, or wanting to protect their family. I remember my grandmother warning me once. She said, make sure when you go get your father, it's for, something extremely important, be careful, because if you might be a little overkill for some things, but it depends on the personality, of course. He didn't always have a super duper cool head, and you better be careful about what mood he was in. I carry a scratch over my left eye to this day because some boys that were older than me decided to throw rocks, and I almost lost my left eye because of it. Well, my father, he found them, and it wasn't pretty because I was 5 at the time and they were like 12. And why would you throw rocks at a 5-year-old, So he got them together and they didn't throw anything else. And I thought years and years later, I said, I wonder if my grandmother had showed up, would they have the same response to not come back, wrap around and bully me as a young child. And these boys, different years of my life would run. If I went to go get my daddy, they would run. My father was a kickboxer at the time. He was very shredded. He was a very big, muscular guy when I was 5, 6 years old and in middle school, because he was training every day. So when he would show up, and he was about 6'1", when he would show up, they would run, they would scatter. And maybe they heard about the rock throwing incident from before. However, it's pretty awesome to see him come to the rescue. So I knew that he was for big things, but his presence meant a lot to me as a young girl in a neighborhood full of boys, because his protection of me just looked so different than watching my grandmother show up as fearless and courageous as she was. Him showing up made a bit of difference in the minds of young boys. I remember this quote that said, it takes a man to check another man. And I knew that growing up. I had faith in that. What I also did growing up, and many of the women in my family, I watched them do this. They had this faith that their husbands would get it right the first time. And I said, yeah, well, then they're supposed to get it right the first time. My husband should get it right the first time too. Until I understood that that's not how that works. There has to be some sort of a learning curve. So placing too much faith in a human being that is not without flaw is not wise. It's wiser to say, you know what, let me see where I can kind of help. Let me talk about where I need support and help and what my concerns are, and let's see what we can do or what's the best course of action. So if he can't figure it out, is there anything I can offer him to kind of help? Is there a book? Is there audio? Is there a video? Is there anything that could possibly assist him in making this decision? I'm not going to sit here and tell him what to do and dictate, and you do it this way, and you screwed up and all these things like that. Would it be better to just be supportive? And now that I know, look, polygyny is a choice that men can make. It is an option for them. However, no one goes through it seamlessly without anything going wrong. And I love to say this because I mean it every time. Turning our losses into lessons. So turning the L into a lesson it's so important, because our brain is always listening. So we have to be mindful of what we say to ourselves, about our spouse. So thoughts are things. So we say, you know what, I don't have much faith in his ability to figure this thing out. Well, then your actions will support it. My issue was I had faith that he could do it, that he could practice polygyny because he had been consistent this long. Why would he drop the ball now? So, but that didn't mean there wouldn't be mistakes being made. That didn't mean I wouldn't make mistakes and have to get educated or corrected or get clarity and not assume things or lead with emotion. So having faith doesn't just mean, that you're a spiritual person or you're a religious person. It does mean that how much faith am I to have in my spouse or not to have? Am I have to have so much faith in them that they will be perfect? Everything they do is going to be perfect. I got faith that they'll figure it all out and they're not going to make one mistake. Or having faith that they'll try their best and they're showing it with their intentions and their action steps. And if they mess up, if they make a mistake and they learn from it, being supportive and being positive and saying, you know what, I know you tried. I know it didn't work out, but I know you tried. There's been so many instances where I've had people either compliment Coach Nazir. I've watched him grow. I've watched him have these goals and achieve them, and I'm able to cheerlead. And then if there's something that's going on that I think I can really help and get in there and support or schedule or show up as a friend, I love to say it because I always mean it. My husband, my friend. Sometimes husbands need a friend to show up. Sometimes a wife needs her husband to be a friend to her and say, tell me what's going on. Where can I support you? If you having an issue between yourself and two friends, then what's going on? And I remember I had a dispute between two friends of mine that were having a dispute with one another. So we were all friends, and I went to Coach Nyla and I asked him, I didn't go as your wife and answer as my husband. It wasn't like that. I really got advice from him, and it felt like I was talking to a friend of mine, because I feel as though my husband, he's a brother of mine, he's a friend of mine, and a brother through biology. But there's different hats that couples wear, that married couples wear for one another, and friendship, our friend, is one of them indeed. Now, he said, you know what? This is the best Islamic advice I can give you. Get both sides of the situation. Get this sister's side, get this sister's side. And I knew that. And lead with edification. So edify, build this one up to this one, build this one up to that one. And to this day, they're friends, they made up. And I remember one of them kind of could see what I was doing. And she said, are you trying to soften my heart for her, Fatimah? I said, yeah, I am. Yeah, absolutely am. I want to soften your heart, because why shouldn't two people that love each other and have always looked at each other as sisters not get along because of this little thing? Because of this little thing. I said, you don't want to get rid of somebody that's been so awesome for more than 2 decades because you're mad right now. You got to decide if you want to be mad, you want to be right, or you want to have this woman in your life for the rest of your life. And she chose to have this sister and make up with her. And to this day, and this had to happen maybe 6-7 years ago, maybe more. And they're friends still. But had I went the other way and stirred the pot up, was that for me to do? No, that's another subject. But I needed that bias opinion, and I needed that really good sound advice. So yes, it's super duper important to understand that we can show up and have faith in one another, that we're going to show up as friends. We're going to show up as people that are married and working on our relationships, that are working on ourselves, and let us lead with goodness and not just this judgment, or not feeling as though one is not good enough, or we don't have any faith in one another. One thing I do know full well about men is they have the need to feel needed. I looked out the window and I said, why is so many elderly men on their canes and all this stuff? And they're going to the store and they're going to the masjid, and they have a drive within them to feel needed, to go out and produce, to go out and hunt and gather, whatever way they see fit, to go out to the masjid to offer salat. And they might be 80, 90 years old on a cane, 70, 60 years old on a cane, and weak and maybe unhealthy. But it's so beautiful to see them still living with purpose. And I said, there's something in here that just drives them to want to get out and go. I will continue, but before I do, I want to make sure that I share with you this. So stay tuned.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace. I'm Coach Fatimah, one of the co-founders of Outstanding Personal Relationships. And I'm here to talk to you about the Nourishing Fulfillment Counseling Program. What I do is help women from all walks of life obtain information in the areas of relationship wellness, emotional resilience, self-confidence, and inner discovery for best results for their future success. Growth is about implementation for best practices, for best results for your future. So the Nourishing Fulfillment Counseling Program is here for you to help you kind of weed through some of those negative thoughts of self-limiting beliefs so that you can move forward and attain your goals so that you live a truly fulfilling life. So if you want to join me for my Nourishing Fulfillment Counseling Program, be sure that you visit me at CoachFatimah.com for details and start your Nourishing Fulfillment Counseling session today. I'll see you and I look forward to working with you. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.
Okay, I'm back. I'm back after those messages. Yes, so I was thinking that when we speak about men and faith in them and their ability to take charge and be good leaders, they have to invest in themselves and becoming more like Coach Nazir was saying. Now, one thing I was speaking about before was that I'm pretty much saying men aren't machines. So people go, well, did he mess up yet? Did he do this? Did he do that? I said, we weren't perfect in monogamy. Do you think we're going to be perfect in polygyny? No, we're still people. There's still people that are here. We have real feelings. We have real goals. We have real aspirations. We still have things that we need to learn as human beings, as individuals, as a husband, as wives. And what I have to learn might not look like what my co-wife has to learn, and vice versa. We're both women. We're both wives. We're both mothers. We're both business women. But what I need to invest in may not be the same thing. And it likely isn't the same thing. We're in different times of our lives. And that's the beauty of individuality. You can customize what you need to do for you in order to succeed. So knowing that men aren't machines and they're not here to just swoop down and make everything right and fix everything. I found out through a lot of heartache that I was the cause of a lot of my own heartache. Assumptions, trying to sit and measure things and go, well, this didn't happen before. Well, no, it didn't happen before because we were in monogamy before. There was no sharing of nights before. Our calendar looked different before. So it's about getting used to that new normal. And I said, part of getting used to new normal, a part of having faith in someone or actions or intentions, and we're talking about healthy actions and intentions, is understanding that there has to be something from you that you're pouring into your own life. What are you pouring into it? And I said, I can't look externally for others to fix me, because if he can fix what's going on with me, he would snap his finger and fix it already. It was my responsibility. So I had to look inside myself and say, that's on you. That's on you. You got to go there and fix that. And we talk about that more on our different platforms, and especially in our OPR campus, which we really, really have been enjoying. So make sure you visit oprcampus.com for details. Now, I just want to make sure that I know I'm forgetting something. So just bear with me. Let's see. I wrote some notes next to you guys down here on my notebook, but a couple pieces of advice I want to share that were shared with me. One is my favorite pieces of advice, if I could talk. My co-wife and I filmed some content today, and we were answering some questions. And one of the questions is, what is some of the best advice I've gotten? And it was from my aunt. And she said, you got to love someone. You got to love him enough to let him evolve. And I said, ooh, it stung a bit, but the wisdom in that was understanding that this person that you marry is not going to stay the same way that they did when you married them. Now, let me give this disclaimer. There are some general things that may not change. For example, Coach Nyla can't stand yogurt. He doesn't mind some of the yogurt, but he does not like yogurt. He does not like when people don't get to the point. He don't like beating all around the bush and taking all day to say what you got to say, because it wastes time. And men like him want to get to the solution. So the longer we talk, and we're not getting to the solution, he wants to get there. And I used to think it was rude to just go there and just go. And I said, that's not rude to him, because that's what he does. I said, so let's get to the point. Let's do it. Let's get it. Not in an aggressive way, but say less. Literally say less so I can fix it, so I can help, so I can give a suggestion, so I can get in front of it, get under it, go around it. There was wisdom in it. And I learned the quicker I said things, the quicker the solution arrived. If he could help it. Now, if he couldn't, if it was beyond his scope or beyond his ability to fix it, then that's what it was. But if it was anything that he knew or I knew he could help with, and sometimes I didn't always know, that was very liberating to be able to say, this is what's going on. This is how long it took. These are the facts that I have. Da, 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 da. Boom, and he's on it. But I thought I had to kind of package it and do. No. The more I learned about the MBTI, the 16 personality type indicator, I understood that he is not one that likes beating around the bush. And I knew that. I didn't need a website to tell me that. But I indeed knew he didn't like that. So, and it just was more practical. Now, me, you can kind of dance around a few things, but if it's something that's urgent, I want you to get to the point. I want you to get to the point so that I can figure it out. And I'm a doer, so I like to get it done and find a solution as well. But you might not be able to be as direct with me as you can be with him. So there's so many differences, but I had to understand this person generally, after he became Muslim, there's not tons that changed in his likes and dislikes. He's big on respect, big on loyalty, big on healthy communication, big on leadership and being a man and embracing that role fully. Commitment. Okay. He loves that compassion, a listening ear, those things. So that there's a number of other things as well. Good food, attractiveness, consistency, and being congruent and leading with your actions. So you can talk a good game all you want to, but a lot of men like to watch, and people, period, like to watch patterns. You can't say you love me and then you punching me in my face. It doesn't match. It doesn't work. That's not healthy. I want to see the actions that support that. So understanding that the evolution of someone else's desires, wants, needs, maybe he didn't want to practice polygyny back then, or maybe he didn't say anything, or maybe. But I certainly, and I know full well, I'm not the 20-year-old that I was back then. There's so much that I've learned, and there's so many layers to me, and I went 10 levels deep in getting educated on specific things that I used to hide from back then. I learned that I can't talk to my 27-year-old like I talk to my 25-year-old, like I talk to my 23-year-old daughter, like I talk to my 20-year-old daughter. The conversations are different because the relationships have evolved in different ways, and we serve each other in different ways. And I can't talk to my 15-year-old son like I talk to my 10-year-old. The relationships are different. So that's the beauty. That's the beauty. And I've learned much. So it's not just a one-way street where I'm teaching them everything. They've taught me nothing. They've taught me much. So is their father, Coach Nazir. So that matters. So is my co-wife, Coach Nyla. So my bonus babies have taught me things. Shout out to them. Love them so much. And my kids know I love them. So of course they do. So with that, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to put at the bottom screen here. If you have any questions, make sure you put question marks in front of those questions so that I can readily identify them and answer them. But I just want to put on the end of there let's understand that having faith in our husbands has its limitations, just like having faith in us has its limitations. We're not supposed to have so much faith in them, or they have so much faith in us that we say they can't make a mistake. And if they do, here's this punishment for them. Or I'm not never, ever going to trust them anymore because they showed me their human quality where they made mistakes. See, I want to be able to make mistakes and then learn from them so that I'm better the next time around. That's what the goal is. I'm like, I don't have anything figured out all the way. I never will have everything figured out, but I want to make sure that I'm being intentional every single day and waking up with purpose and making sure that my patterns match that purpose and my intentions are healthy upon everybody. Not just myself. And then I'll go, I'll see if I'll be fair to this person. But I'm going to make sure I'm good and fair to me. No, that's not a healthy relationship. That's not a healthy marriage make. That's not a foundation that is going to be stable for success, long-term success. It's not about saying, okay, I'm going to have this short-term marriage success. I don't know anybody that said, I want to get married to get divorced. I want to have short-term success when I marry this person, not long-term. That's too much of a commitment. Short-term success. So how do we have long-term success without having long-term healthy patterns, healthy intentions and actions and conversations, talking to one another and having those hard conversations? They don't have to be hostile. They might be hard, but they don't have to be hostile. And polygyny is not impossible at all. Make them salam. Let's see. Okay, we have a comment. Okay, salams. I listened to Coach Nazir. Mr. Sally, that's okay. The video where he talked about weekly meetings. Is that something you guys recommend from the beginning, or should you wait? I think I'll speak for myself when I say that this did not happen overnight with our family. My co-wife and I kind of sat down and we talked to one another. Coach Nyla really led the charge on that, although we all decided that we were going to share information at the family meetings, that we were going to give suggestions. But he really stepped up and was like, we're going to have a family meeting. And at first everybody's like, huh? What? But it was such a great idea. I'm glad we have them because we're checking in with each other. So it didn't happen overnight. For me personally, had different conversations happen sooner, I could see us doing it sooner, but it was like, okay, he'll decide whatever he wants to do. And in my mind, initially, I never thought of it being a thing, like that we needed it. And now I would tell families that if they can get to that point, it would be great, because then you know what page everybody's on, and then you don't have to have a bunch of little meetings. However, we live in separate homes that we share with Coach Nazir. So we see him every day. He's available to us. But we have our own individual household meetings. And then we have one big family meeting a week, which is really great. And we can plan out different things like events. We want to do movie night. If we want to do an outing with the family, if we want to do a family dinner, family game night, I suggest Jeopardy. We had a great time playing Jeopardy. Coach Nyla came up with that idea. Uno is always fun, yet a very vicious game to play. And yeah, so it depends on, because you want to be able to look at, and I've heard men talk about this before with checking the climate of everybody's energy. So, someone asked me a question. It was a really great question. I asked Coach Nazir, I said, if a husband takes one wife someplace and not the other, and he doesn't have the family together, then should the wife that didn't get to go feel a kind of a way? And he said, well, the husband has to think about personality, the attitude. Is this one going to act up? Because some women have done that. I've seen some very rough conversations at public outings where the whole family was there. Maybe they didn't come in this big kumbaya, togetherness moment, but all the members of the family were there, and there's been outbursts. There's been verbal fights. Some have fought each other physically. So sometimes, it just depends on who you're married to. Coach Nazir knew he wasn't in any jeopardy of that. No hands, no name calling, no causing a scene. No. My co-wife and I don't act like that at all. We've never act like that. If we needed to talk, we talked, and we talked in private, and it wasn't in a room full of people, or we talked to our husband individually, privately, the three of us, whatever the case may be. But that has been very rare. And typically, if that has happened, it's something involving the kids. It's not us. So my co-wife and I have always been cordial. We've gotten a closer relationship over the years, but it depends on who's there. It depends on the members of the family. It depends on what you decide. But I do know Coach Nyla gave me that really great advice to share with the sister that I asked. He said, the husband's got to think about that. Are these two going to get along? Is there going to be some backlash? What's going to happen if this has been the pattern this long? I know of some co-wives that don't want to be in the same room with each other at all. And it's been over 10 years. So yeah, you got to kind of be able to see what the two different or three or four different personality types are like. And Coach Nazir knew my personality type, Coach Nyla's personality type, and he knew he wasn't going to get any of this behavior that was negative and causing scenes and disruptions. We went to Six Flags, all of us together before. We've done a lot of family outings in public. We have a video, I think it's called Polygyny in Public or Polygyny in Public. I can't remember the name of it. We have addressed some of these things, and he has as well. That's really a great question, because my husband, he waited, and then he came up with the idea to have family meetings. I'm really, really glad that he did. And the frequency is up to you. We have a lot of people in our family. There's 12 of us. It's 12 children. So it's a lot of people to coordinate, and we have to have a space that support the size of our family. Sometimes we'll have a family meeting outside. Sometimes we'll have one at our respective homes that we share with Coach Nazir. Because I don't go over at their house and then they come to my house. No, they're both his houses. So, and we're welcoming each other's homes, not all around the clock, not all the, there's not a turnstile in these places that we live in. We come in a respectful way. We decide, and it's on the calendar, it's predetermined. So we kind of know where we're going to be. And we have a family group chat that really helps a lot with the size of our family, where we can talk to one another. We have different platforms that we use to connect with one another and share ideas even before the meeting. So one thing that I really like that Coach Nyla did is he came to us individually and brought this idea, and he went forward with it. We got on board with it because it's about the big picture, and there's a lot of young children in our family, and it's really, I want their core memories, and so does my family want their core memories to be healthy ones, because it's difficult once children are traumatized or they feel as though they don't feel safe within their own family, or it could be better because there's a quote, if the family's messed up, it's because the grown-ups messed it up. The kids didn't do this, see? So we have that common goal, and I'm really glad that he did that. He's got some incredible leadership qualities, attributes, but he acts on it. So if he wrote it down, if it was been on a journal, if it's been in a dry erase board, if it's been in his planner, whatever the case may be, if it's come out of his mouth, he'll follow through with it. And it's not just, he's the leader, of our family, absolutely. But there are leaders within it, but none like him. And we just come together and we share those ideas and we bounce things off of each other and give advice. And it's really, really a great feeling when you have that. But you can imagine if you're bringing anger into a space where you want to have this really great energy, that can mess up the whole meeting. So when we come in the door, we do our best to have great energy with one another and make it fun and make it something that's productive and not just in a room being hostile toward one another. So sometimes maybe you have to have individual conversations on what you want to do. I'm just going off of what Coach Nyla has done over the years. And then you never know. You might get a lot of help. You might get some resistance. But one thing I know about me, sometimes I need a little extra push. Not so much now, but back then I needed a little extra push. And he knew that. And I'm like, you know what? This might just work. This might be a good idea. And if it's not something that I'm like, yay, this is good for our children. And so we need to support what's good for them. And I think that the family meeting, what it did, it helped us get to know one another better too. That's what I really like, because my co-wife and I, Coach Nyla, got to kind of know each other a little bit more, and that was really great, and I enjoyed that so much. You can also email us at support@outstandingpersonalrelationships.com, and you can connect there as well. And before I close out this, and that was a great question. Thank you so much. That really needed to be asked. So I appreciate it. I want to share this with you, and I will be back in a few.
Attention! Yeah, you Scroll Meister, slow down a second. Let me ask you a question. What does freedom mean to you? Specifically, financial freedom. What does that look like? Now, I'm Coach Nazir. Many people know that I practice polygamy. That means I'm married to 2 incredible women. We have a total of 10 children together, including 2 bonus children. So, yeah, that's a dozen. Pray for me. Now, I'm not saying any of that to impress upon you, anything about having a big family, but I am sharing with you that we've been having the time of our lives, really traveling the world these last couple of years, being to several different countries, and the ability to world school my children is priceless. Giving them more than where I come from in the Midwest, being born to a Puerto Rican mother and a Black American father when they were both 16 years old. I mean, there was a lot of poverty going on, from eating tortillas and butter or mayonnaise sandwiches. I knew broke really from both ends. But I knew something had to be different. And despite not having the ability to go to college or the funds, or even really the desire for that matter, I ended up getting my GED. Not good enough diploma. But thankfully, I came across some mentors and people saw more in me than I did in myself. And they helped me shape my priorities, which are faith, family, and finances. So now I get asked the question, hey, Coach Nazir, is it expensive to practice polygyny? How much money do you need to have? How rich do you have to be? And the short answer is, it depends. All right, yes, I have a large family. Yes, we're traveling the world. We're honored to be able to do so. But one of the things I encourage everyone to do is increase your financial IQ. Make sure you're getting money online. It's not geographically restricted. And I'm honored that we did it before COVID, so things didn't get shut down. So this Sunday, I want to share with you some things that I did to increase my financial IQ and provide you with some insight on why you should also choose to get paid online, especially during this recession before things go south really fast. If you're serious about making 2023 that breakout year, then I want to see you there. Click the link below, sign up to join the webinar. It's free, or go to oprfiscallyfit.com. I look forward to seeing you there. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.
So, since we brought up Coach Nazir, this is so awesome. This Fiscally Fit webinar that he conducts, it's for men and women. You don't have to be married. You don't have to be single. You can get involved in this awesome information at oprfiscallyfit.com. Like the coach was saying, I'm going to go back to the comments before I end. Let's see. Let's go back up here. Another comment. Oh, you're so welcome. I struggle with being Just time, especially with children. I don't want them to hate me for not being there. Sometimes one thing that Coach Nazir did, he did many things for our children and for his children and bonus children. He had hard conversations with them too. So, and I didn't need to be there because that was the power of it, because we know that sometimes if mom's sitting there, the answer might be different with dad. You know, I love how organic the conversations he had with our daughters was, because our sons, all they've known is polygyny. So they didn't have to have a conversation necessarily. And that's all they've ever known because they were so young, but our daughters were very teenagery and older. So I love that he pulled them to the side, found a beautiful, place, a setting that was outside the home sometimes, and had these really amazing conversations. And they still remember them. And I love the fact that I wasn't there. I love that, because then he was able to communicate. They were able to communicate with him. One thing I love that he specifically does is that his children know that he's always available to them, always. So I don't care if they're sick, and we've had to rush kids to the hospital. We've had to go to different school activities and whatever the case, he was always there. I remember when our oldest daughter graduated middle school, and it actually fell on a day that was my co-wife's day, and it's really his day with us, like Coach Nyla says, and I love when she says it. Yes, he has a nice beard. Thank you for that. Alhamdulillah. He was available, and he came, watched our daughter graduate. I mean, how many times do you get to do that? Now, some men don't have that opportunity because of maybe their job or geography or different things like that. That might be the case. And we know some men that have one wife on this side of the world or in this state, or, they might not communicate with one another, and he has to do a lot and has to play the middleman a lot. He's indeed the man that is in the middle, the husband that is in the middle. I should say. But I remember that when and likewise for my co-wife, if there was something going on or an event he had to be at, he made sure he was there. If someone needed to go out of town, one of us had to visit a sick relative, he made sure he got us there. He made sure. Now, you can't be in two places at one time, but I love the fact that with our family, if there's a death, let's say, for example, my father passed away. It fell on a night where my husband was going to my co-wife's house, his other wife's house. And I was explaining to him that I let him know kind of how the funeral was gonna, I'll let you know when I get home. He was like, I'm going. That's his father-in-law. But I didn't know what the rules were. So I was like, I'm not going to ask him to come to a funeral and he doesn't need to be there. No, he needed to be there. And he knew I wasn't thinking with a clear head. And I absolutely was not. I wasn't. I didn't know the rules exactly because I'd never been in polygyny and my father died. So everything that was logical went right out of my head because I had to help get so much stuff done and rip and run and do so many things and funeral homes and switching funeral homes and doing all these things. And I had lost my dad in the midst of doing these things. So it's, before I had to do the different preparations and take my grandmother different places to sign stuff. In the midst of it, my husband's practicing polygyny. It was the 3rd year. So this was not easy at all, but he was available. So I don't do this thing where I tell him where he's kind of got to be, and I make sure I let him know what's going on. He decides what he's going to do, how he can do it, especially with the guidelines of Islam. We're all practicing Muslims. He observes those every time. And then what he needs to customize for our family, he makes sure that's done. And I have every faith and I have every confidence that that is what is going to happen. Does the master class include how to get a nice beard? I don't know. You're going to have to sign up and find out. You have to stay tuned. But I will pass on the compliment indeed. I want to thank you all for being here. I truly, truly appreciate it. And again, some questions that I try to answer to the best of my ability. But again, I'm a wife in polygyny. I'm not a husband in polygyny. Coach Nazir is the one to ask those specific questions to, because he's living that life, you know. So I can only know what it's like to be him, because he's sharing that with me, and even yet and still I don't know. It would be no different than me trying to explain to him what it's like to be me and have a baby. You know, when I had children, I can explain it to him, but the experience is a whole nother thing. So feel free to reach out to him and ask him those questions, or you will be able to see him at his webinar, which is free webinar out, OPR, fiscallyfit.com for details. So make sure you check that out. I'm going to end the live cast now. If you guys are on YouTube, you know we're Outstanding Personal Relationships on YouTube and on Facebook, but over on IG, we're Outstanding Relationships. And also make sure that you guys are picking up our polygyny roadmap at polygamyroadmap.com for details. And if you're interested in coaching or counseling, you could check out my website at coachfatimah.com, or Coach Nyla at coachnyla.com, or even Coach Nazir at coachnazir.com for details. Now, yep, there's no more questions. So I super duper duper really, really, really appreciate you all. And we are going to sign off in just a moment. I'm just checking to make sure that we don't have any more questions, and I will see you guys in the next one. Be sure to sign up, register for free at OPR fiscallyfit.com, or join our OPR campus for furthering your polygyny education at oprcampus.com for details. And I'm going to leave you guys with some GLC. Make sure you're growing intentionally, loving fearlessly, and connecting on a higher level every single day. I'm Coach Fatimah. We'll see you guys in the next one. So I'm like, peace.
Polygamy wide.
Reporting for duty, husband, sir.
Formation. I am Coach Nazir.
I am Coach Fatimah, his wife.
And I am Coach Nyla. I am also his wife.
We are the founders of Outstanding Personal Relationships and Polygamy Bootcamp. And if you think that's how polygamy actually works,
You are sadly mistaken.
but you were laughing, right? I know you're laughing. That's funny. Anyway, we're also the authors of Let's Talk Polygamy Uncensored. And we want to let you know something, because when it comes to practicing polygamy, there's this whole fantasy on how that is, at least on the men's side. Like, I'll do this, they're going to be step, lock, and step. Not at all. Not at all. The challenge is, when we embarked on our polygynous journey, before us raising, 12 children and traveling the world and everything else, it looked a whole lot messier and it was a whole lot more challenging. All right. So what we've done is we put a special gift together for you at polygamybootcamp.com to kind of let you know what the pillars are to really practicing it at a high level, especially if you're new, or if you just have the idea, or maybe you want to just kind of figure a few things out.
Right.
Yeah. Many initial wives believe that they're being replaced, or that their husband doesn't love them anymore, and they don't really know how to deal with that or their emotions.
And many subsequent wives, incoming wives, if you will, or second wives, have the feeling of where do they belong, or that they are not good enough and they have to do extra in order to get the acceptance and the attention and the affection of their husband. And we dispel all of that. Polygamybootcamp.com.
Go there, get your free gift. You will thank us later, especially if you're looking at practicing polygyny in a healthy fashion. Make sure you click the link below. Go ahead and get your free gift, and we look forward to sharing more fun stuff with you. So shape up.
or ship out.
Click the button below. Assalamu alaikum.
Peace.